and it was really founded in response to a need in the community. We had started a women's emergency house here in Haliburton County, which had to close really for the lack of funding. And a group of us got together and said, how can we do something that would create new wealth in the community so we can reinvest it in the initiatives that benefit the community? So that's how the conversation started. This is back in sort of 97, 98. And we got this idea of forming a community cooperative. Now, my question to you, on your screen, is my head blocking the print?
No, it's perfect.
Okay, good. On my screen it is. So yeah, you know, co-ops are unique, you know, sort of social and economic bodies, and they respond to the members' needs. They respond to the community's needs. And there's for-profit co-ops and not-for-profit co-ops. How many people in the room here belong to a co-op?
I do.
Okay. So how many folks have an account at a credit union?
Yeah.
Okay. How many folks buy products of Gay Leaf Foods?
I do.
All right, Gay Leaf Foods is a farmers cooperative. How many folks belong to or buy things from Mountain Equipment Co-op? Yeah. Okay, so another cooperative. So this whole idea of a cooperative, but a community cooperative is a somewhat different model. Whereas most other cooperatives, so for the Mountain Equipment Co-op, people got together because they had the same interest in buying outdoor equipment, and so they pooled their resources together and did that. Whereas a community cooperative is the common interest is doing good for the community, and the benefit to the membership is actually doing things that they want to see happen in the community. So there isn't a financial benefit to the members. There's a more of a social, cultural, environmental benefit to it. And then being part of a co-op, you're part of a sort of an international sisterhood. And co-ops have these 7 principles. So when you're starting a co-op, you actually have to look at all these things and say, okay, so is this how we want to be? Is this how we want to operate as a community, especially for a community cooperative? So that number 7 is the concern for the community. Years ago, I did some training for the board of directors of Gay Leaf Foods, and though they were all about sort of bringing benefit to themselves, they were also doing all sorts of work internationally and making sure that their profits were actually going in to help different communities. So our mandate is to encourage, develop, support entrepreneurial initiatives that contribute to the social, cultural, environmental, and economic well-being of Haliburton County and its residents. So that entrepreneurial initiatives there was the whole idea is that we didn't want to set up a social service agency or charity. We wanted to do things that were actually going to generate revenue or specifically make change in the community. And so this is specifically for Haliburton County and its residents, so we try not to do things that go beyond our borders, but we have trouble staying within our borders sometimes. Well, just because things grow, such as Spark actually came out of the co-op. So it was a lot of folks involved in the performing arts who got together and said, let's do this. And because we had the system the co-op set up, we could launch Spark almost instantly in terms of the idea of Spark. So we learned lots of lessons in our first years, as anybody does who's starting out something brand new. It took us a while to figure out exactly the model that worked for us. An important thing is that the co-op is a co-op of individuals. It's not a co-op of organizations. So it's individuals who are committed to the mandate, are committed to being part of a cooperative, and are interested in working cooperatively and all about creating a vibrant, healthy, active community. So any group of our members can initiate a project, but there's a few, before a project actually gets set up under the auspices of the co-op, it has to be reviewed by the board of directors, and it has to meet a number of criteria. So it's basically that there's an actual dedicated group of people that want to see this go forward. The project has to be self-sustaining. It has to meet the mandate of the co-op. Each project has a liaison where a member of the board also sits on the committee. And then each project pays 8% of its gross revenue into a central pot. So, and the one major rule is that you can't bring the co-op into disrepute, which means that you can't be going off and doing things which is going to have a negative impact on all the rest of the co-op. So even though the parts of the co-op operate quite autonomously, there are checks and balances. The board of directors gets together every month, and there's a liaison from every project at the board, and so we're always reviewing what's going on, not telling people what to do, but just every once in a while there's something, the red flag goes up and say, oh wait a minute. Having that happening and having people drinking alcohol there and not having a license and etc., that's going to cause problems, could cause problems for the whole co-op. One time we had a group called Permafrost, which was protesting the closing of the Frost Center here in Haliburton County. And they got access to a billboard right down by the legislature in Toronto. But what they were saying was actually sort of, defamation of Dalton McGuinty. So he said, whoa, 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 whoa. Like this thing was like, it was billboard size right downtown Toronto. So like, okay, let's just change this message a little bit so that we don't get sued for defaming the character of the premier. Though he probably deserved it, but that at the time. So any questions at this point, just in terms of sort of our setup?
How many members on your board?
We have 9.
And membership in the co-op itself?
Probably over 100. Our membership, we don't actually have people just sort of joining the co-op as a member saying, I want to be a member, because there's no actual personal benefit to them. The people who are the members are the people who are actually on the management committees of all the projects, because they have a vested interest in the co-op. And but that is over 100 people who sit on all those committees.
How big is Haliburton County?
It's almost 2/3 the size of Prince Edward Island.
Okay, population?
Full-time population, 18,000.
So it's like us, it's rocks and trees.
Rocks and trees and lakes, yep.
Yeah. Just before you move on to the next topic, one of the things you do at Spark is you're funded by Trillium. And I'm guessing that some of your initiatives are funded by grants that people are allowed to go out after, and some are funded by entrepreneurial income. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Probably one year we had a really bumper year, and our revenue was over $500,000 among all the parts of the co-op. And half of that was from grants, and half of that was from generated revenue. So
are you considered are you a nonprofit corporation?
We are not. Well, we are a nonprofit incorporated cooperative. So co-ops fall under a different set of legislation than other businesses. So there's an Ontario Cooperatives and Corporations Act.
Are you a charity as well then with CRA?
No, we're not a charity.
So in other words, so organizations, granting organizations that give out to charities only would have to give out to one of the organizations that are doing something. So a theater group that is a charity would have to apply for like an OTF grant or
That's right. So, I mean, there are some things that we do which sort of fall into a charitable, that are charitable, that fall into charitable categories. And in those situations, we partner with a local charity that, we actually work together with them, so the funding can go through them. Generally, that's only an issue for when you're getting money from foundations.
Yeah.
Because federal government granting agencies aren't focused on giving money to charities.
Yeah. I'm thinking of things like RBC Foundation and things like that.
Yes, and yeah, so we've partnered with organizations on that. Now it's become harder and harder to do that because of the CRA. So it actually has to be that organization. This is what you're doing is exactly in their mandate, and you have an actual written agreement with them and all those kinds of things. But generally, we don't run into those issues. We get funding from a huge number of, because we have so many different parts of the co-op, they're getting funding from everywhere, just about everywhere imaginable. So here's the list of, we have 2 community festivals, 8 arts-based initiatives, 7 initiatives focused on active, healthy living, local food, active transportation, rural transportation, and we have a community-based research center. And I'll just quickly give you a look at that. So our community festivals, we have Minden Pride Festival, which happens every August, and it's a week-long celebration. And we also have the Lantern Festival of the August Moon, which is basically a Japanese festival, and we use the river in that flows through Minden and the walking bridge. It's just really an extraordinary community event.
I want to go now.
So here's some pictures of the Lantern Festival, and the pictures of Minden Pride. You notice the same bridge here used for the Lantern Festival and Minden Pride.
And was the bridge built by the co-op too?
No, that was actually, I think the money came from Trillium and the municipality to build that. But it was actually a grassroots organization that got it started. And a number of people who were involved in that were actually involved in the co-op. So then we have all these arts-based initiatives. And remember, this isn't a board of directors saying, oh, we should do this. This is groups of people saying, we want to do this, and coming to the co-op and saying, this is something we want to do. Can we do it under the auspices of the co-op? So we have Dance Happens Here Haliburton, which infuses professional and community-based dance into events throughout the county. We held this is just one of the things at the top there. We held an event called Kolameka, which we had Ukrainian dancers and basically had this sort of dance festival where the whole 120 people came, and you could see the little boy and the dancer down there. It was really quite an extraordinary event. But we brought them in to perform in the Nutcracker, which is put on by a local group and has also all kids in it, but we brought in the professional dancers to teach them some things and actually perform in it as well. We have a writers and editors network. We're part of the TIFF film circuit with those other movies, and we also have our own international film festival, HIF, and then DH3 works with HIF, and we have this program called Dance Shorts where we put 3-minute dances, like movie shorts, except dance shorts, in front of each movie. So involving professional dancers and community organizations. And this year we're doing Shorts on Stage, which is dance performances and other performing arts. And it's sort of like a amuse-bouche or a sorbet before the between courses. We have Sticks and Stones Productions, which provides sort of digital media and video. They've been basically recording everything that's gone on in this county for probably 12 years. We have hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage of every cultural event that's happened. And they produce documentaries and small, short videos for organizations. commercials, whatever. It's all not-for-profit, and really focused on helping young people get the skills, get into the profession, and also helping older people get the skills and do the things that they want to do. So it's a whole educational component to it as well. And through Sticks and Stones, Sticks and Stones has basically been the catalyst for now. We have quite a robust digital media industry here in Haliburton County.
Wow.
The Haliburton County Folk Society, which has been around since the beginning of the co-op, and they have a concert series, an open stage, a winter folk camp, a home roots. They do scholarships for young people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Highlands Little Theater is part of the co-op. They actually existed for 35 years in the community as an unincorporated not-for-profit, and then realized, you know what, we should probably be a little more organized now with litigiousness, et cetera. So they, they're a very cooperative group, so their members became members of the co-op, and now they exist under the auspices of the co-op. So you can see how all these different groups can share each other with equipment, microphones, lighting, talent, etc. The Rural Rogues Theater, they do place-based theater, and Michael Clipperton is on the right there with the bowler hat, and he's there today with Spark.
Yes.
So they're doing. They actually had a playwrights workshop, who created one-act plays, who then did a public reading of it, and then this year people actually performed their plays out of doors. Visible Voices Open Art Studio is all about expressive arts, and we have a 900 square foot studio, which is just chock-a-block full of art supplies, and they do a lot of work supporting mental health, isolated seniors, troubled kids, you name it. So those are our arts-based initiatives, and then we have a whole bunch of other ones. So we have some which are more sort of social recreational based, like the Haliburton Highlands Trekkers. There's about 80 to 100 people who are part of this group, and they go snowshoeing, hiking, canoeing, and kayaking. Harvest Haliburton is all about local food and food policy. And so we have some which are really sort of policy and advocacy groups. So they've been effective in actually getting things put into the official plans of all our municipalities related to food policy. And on their committee, they have a representative from every one of the councils. The Friends of the Rail Trail is all about using our rail trail in positive and active ways. And then out of that, an offshoot, the Toronto to Algonquin Greenway, which is actually looking at collaborating with communities all along the trails that go from Toronto all the way up to Algonquin Park. Communities in Action is all about active transportation and the built environment, and so creating walkable, bikeable, rural communities. And we've actually received international attention for the work that we've done here in the rural community.
Yeah, I think there's been people from that organization down talking to the active transportation here in Lanark County.
Yep. So we've worked very closely with the health unit. The health unit has a responsibility to make things happen in the community, but they have no budget to actually do programming. And so the health unit here is they've hooked up, the individual members have hooked up with the co-op and formed these these groups, which then bring the whole community together around particular issues. And this one is the Haliburton Highlands Paddlers, which is a dragon boating group, which is open to the whole community. We have a group that's focused on rural transportation. We have no public transportation system here, and so they've been working for years, and actually now have the county on side to come up with a system. But that's all been grassroots effort to make that happen. And then we have a community-based research center called ULink Center for Community-Based Research. As far as we know, it's the only one existing in North America. And so we're an independent research center, and we collaborate with mostly Trent University, but also all these other universities you see here. And basically it's asking the community what research needs, questions you have, and then linking them up with students and professors at universities to make that research happen. So those are the existing parts of the co-op. There's a couple of, there's been some that have come and gone over the years. That they did a project, they got the project done, or they got together to look into the feasibility of something and found out that it wasn't feasible, and they said, okay, that's fine, and they closed up shop. And this is sort of what the co-op looks like. So you can see in the center there, the board of directors. You notice the arrows going both ways. A board member is a liaison on every one of the groups. Some people have, I'm actually a liaison for four of the groups, just because I'm interested in those particular ones. But that means that there's a constant flow of information back and forth between the co-op board and its parts. And then some of the parts have their own memberships. So the Folk Society has its own membership. Those other movies has season passes. The paddlers have their own membership. The trekkers have their own membership. So those people who are members aren't actually members of the co-op. They're members of that part of the co-op. And then this is just showing sort of the impact of the co-op. Is then you have impact of having huge audiences, having impact sort of broadly throughout the county and also throughout the country, and sometimes throughout the world.
People came from all over for Spark, so that's what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm. So there's obviously benefits to be part of the co-op. So what happens is a group that wants to do something, it's a good idea, they come to the board and say, we want to do this. And then if the board approves it, then immediately they are part of an incorporated group. So they have access to the incorporated status, board of directors, insurance, website. We use software through TechSoup, bookkeeping, every grant that's written. So the parts have to apply for their own funding. The board doesn't do that for them, but the board reviews every grant that goes in just to make sure that it fits within the mandate. And also because we got people who have been writing grants for 40 years on the board to assist with that. So there's, when things come to the co-op board, it's like, oh, you're doing this. Well, this part is doing that. Why can't you work together? You can apply for funding together, etc. And we also own probably $150,000 worth of equipment in terms of sound equipment, video equipment, lights, etc. A dragon boat, etc. And those things are all assets of the co-op. However, if one of the parts, say the Dragon Boaters, decided they wanted to be their own organization, if they did all the work to raise the money to buy the boat, then if they said we want to leave and form our organization, then we would send the boat off, and the paddles off with them, right? If all the parts of the co-op have worked together to get something, then if a part wants to leave, then they can't take it with them. But we've never actually had one leave. Except in the very beginning. And there you go.
That's amazing, Jim. Thank you so much.
Jim, how do you talked about that group that had that poster, for example, down in Queen's Park. So if there's one of the members of the group is going against the overall aims of the cooperative, how is that handled?
We shun them.
Besides taking them out off the Minden Bridge and pushing them off the river, one of the festivals,
part of it is, we very seldom have that issue. But one of the things is there's a board member sitting at the table, so somebody who actually always reminds them, you're part of a cooperative. These are the cooperative principles. If you don't want to be part of a cooperative, that's okay, and you can leave. But if you want to be part of a cooperative, you have to abide by these things.
So the guidelines set the sort of
expectations before you get in. So if you violate those, then you just have to leave. Right?
Yeah, there's a terms of reference, which is like it's a 4-page document, which basically outlines, but a lot of it is like the financial arrangements and all those kinds of things, and HST and how all those things work. So it's when the issues we run into is when we have a board liaison who hasn't been attentive or attending a lot of meetings, then sometimes groups can start to wander. So that obviously that comes quickly apparent at the board of directors, and then we cause a little intervention. I've only had to go in and give personally go in and sort of not give a lecture, but do a
Read the riot act.
yeah. I've only had to do that once.
Or as someone said here, pep talks.
Yes. Other now what's happened is I gave a presentation at Ontario Healthy Communities Coalition conference, and these two guys rushed the stage, and they were from the city of Kawartha Lakes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And they city of Kawartha Lakes was all the little communities were forced to amalgamate, and so they were left with no voice. And they had done a business retention and recruitment exercise in Fenelon Falls. They came up with all this great stuff, but there was no body to actually implement it. So they heard about the co-op and thought, okay, so here's the body that we can create a community cooperative, and then under that cooperative, all these different initiatives can happen under the co-op. So they came and they spent a fair bit of time coming back and forth. I presented to their group. We met a number of times, and they learned. I said, if we were going to start the co-op fresh again, these are some things that we would do, do differently. And so they had an opportunity to do a fresh start. And I think they have 5 or 6 initiatives going under them now. But it's not for the faint of heart. It's people have to really understand what is a cooperative and what is cooperation, and those are difficult concepts for some people.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But everyone in this room is an arts volunteer or a community volunteer already.
Yeah.
So we have a head start.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're cooperative.
No, it doesn't.
See, and that's the issue. Is like a lot of us is like we only. I don't want to waste time working with people who are grumpy or are road blocking or whatever. It's just like you want to work with the willing and the enthusiastic. So this way, either people are in the fold, or I don't mean that we don't work with everyone else, but it's really understanding that whole. The community only grows if people cooperate. Otherwise, your resources are spent on having 10 different organizations.
It's kind of where we're at right now. There's lots of different organizations doing their own specialty, but we could achieve more with some cooperation, which is why I wanted people to be around the table listening to you, Jim.
There's some questions here.
I have a technical question about how the office works. Is it just one person who collects the mail and keeps things going, or is that done by collective volunteering?
That's a good question. So we actually don't have an official co-op office.
Okay.
But ULinks, because it actually has full-time staff, we get a fair bit of funding from Trent University, but also from the community. Its budget is about $170,000 a year. So we actually have a little storefront operation in Minden, and so we use that as the co-op office. And then the co-op pays ULinks a certain amount of money, and the person who does their admin takes care of all the co-op stuff. So if you need bills paid or whatever, you just send them to her. The parts of the co-op, the larger parts that have a lot of activity, they have their own bank accounts, their own everybody has to have their own chair, their own treasurer, their own secretary. But sometimes the smaller parts are run through the central bank account, and the larger parts have their own bank accounts and write their own checks.
That would be effective for like a quick one-off project too, as you can run it through the central group.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's messy. In terms of, because you've got so many people involved, it's tricky just keeping tabs on all of that stuff.
Jim, it's Chris.
Yep.
A couple of questions from folks. Should I go, Jennifer? It's Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
So what is your relationship with the Haliburton School of the Arts, and to what extent was it necessary for that to be there before you could do at least some of the art stuff that you do? Is that at all?
Well, that's a 52-year-old story.
Sorry.
Could maybe do that at lunch.
Yeah, no, but I'll just say that the college here and the Haliburton School of Art and Design, it started with exactly the same method, with a group of people getting around on the table and saying, look at what they're doing in Banff, why can't we do that here? And they started the school. And then the community college system started, and they thought it'd be really nice to have some support on this. They approached Fleming College in Peterborough, and then it's grown to now we have a full-time campus. So it actually started in the same way of the co-op. Same with the Haliburton Highlands Guild of Fine Art, started the same way.
Guild, Fine Arts, and we got an public art gallery.
Yeah.
There's no official relationship between. They're not part of it.
No, except half of us work at the college. Everybody in the community. I've been teaching at the college for 20 years. Tammy Ray, who runs Sticks and Stones, she actually started the digital media programs at the college and in the high school. We work collaboratively with Sticks and Stones, the library, Canoe FM, and the college to create a community of making, so a maker space. So there's lots and lots of collaboration with the college.
Okay, we have Rona has a question.
I'm from Almont, and we're somewhat like a bedroom community. That there are a lot of people coming in and out to work in Ottawa.
Yep.
So what I'm wondering about is not so much comparing, but I wonder what your base is in terms of population, and I wonder how much overlap there is between all these little groups of eager people who are participating in something special that they're interested in. I'm wondering how much overlap, like do people join more than one co-op, and what kind of base do you have for your community? Is it a big, huge base of people that are everyone's involved, or you have a core of people who kind of do a whole lot?
Good question. I mean, there's only one co-op, so it's the Haliburton County Community Cooperative, and all those 18 things are just part of the co-op. So there's not a bunch of cooperatives, there's just one co-op.
Right, but you have all these special interests.
Well, they're all part of the co-op, and so what happens is a group of people say, I'd really like to see this happen, and they get together. And so the folks who are involved with the trekkers, like there's 80 folks involved there, very few of them, but a lot of those people would probably go to those other movies, and they might be involved in the paddlers. But they're probably not involved, and they might go to a folk society thing, so they might go attend things. Sure, there's some people who are involved in a lot of things, but because of the way the system is, it's groups of people get together because they're really interested in something very specific. So the Visible Voices Open Art Studio, it's people interested in expressive arts. The people who are involved in the active transportation stuff are all about interested in creating policy and actually causing an impact on the community and changing official plans. So there's a lot of different people involved, but there's lots of crossover as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
And Jim, can I add to, like, for example, the trekkers? They're just a bunch of people that want to go hiking and walk hills and things. And so they don't want to go to board meetings, and they don't want to have committee meetings, and they don't want to send, and so then they can go, and they can't apply for a grant, but they need to fix a walkway or something that they see. So then that's where they hook into the cooperative, because the cooperative has a board who knows all the steps to getting a grant, that sort of thing.
Because of the nature of this community, I was wondering, how many people in our community would be eager, or are all these people rushing back and forth to Ottawa to participate because they work in Ottawa? So
Yeah.
the nature of our community, I'm just wondering, do we have the potential for all
Awesome,
that?
but that's why we're here to explore, Rona.
Yeah,
Right. Also, the Haliburton County-wide initiative,
right.
and
Oh,
we're
it's a
part of
big area.
Greater Lanark
Yes,
County, right?
exactly.
Which is the same size and pile of rocks as Haliburton. Our rocks might be more pink.
We have one more. I know Jim has to go.
Yeah.
We have Hike Haliburton happening, and I know he's going on a hike. So we have one more question, Jim, for sure.
Okay.
You said that you're like 18,000. Now, the cooperative, is it just in Haliburton, or do you take in the whole county?
So it's the Haliburton. Yes, so it's the Haliburton County Community Cooperative. So our activity is for the whole county. Most of the population is focused sort of in the southern half of the county. So most of our activity is happening around the Minden, the village of Minden, village of Haliburton areas. But that's just because that's where the most of the population is. But we are involved in things all the way up to Oxtongue Lake and over to Cardiff.
So it's, a little bit big, so it's got to be a little bit more than 18,000. That's more than just the population of
Oh, there's only 18,000 people who live here year round.
Okay.
Year round.
They have some, you have summer people, right?
We have, yeah, so we have 4 times as many seasonal residents. But, you know, there's some seasonal residents involved in this, but mostly it's full-time residents. In terms of the folks coming from Ottawa, we have lots of people who actually commute to Toronto, to all sorts of places to work. And it's interesting that almost all of the people who are involved in the cooperative and these cooperative things weren't born here.
Yeah.
That's another issue.
It's not bad. There's a lot of come from ways in this room too.
Yeah, mind you, most of the people who live in the county weren't born here, right? So we have our population is growing faster than the rate of the province here in Haliburton County. But it's mostly the 45 to 70 group that's where it's growing.
We have almost no 20 to 30-year-olds in our demographic slice.
Yeah, so we have the same issue, though that's improving. And part of that is because of the work that we've been doing with the co-op is we're actually creating an environment where there's just so much cool stuff going on.
You don't need to live in the big city.
Exactly. I got to go. I got a hike to go on, and lovely to see you all. And if you say, wow, we'd really like to talk more about being part, creating a cooperative, I'm happy to come to Allmount. I have a lifetime guarantee of a room in Jennifer's house. So I.
Oh yeah, I remember promising.
You remember that? So I'd be happy to come.
They stop.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Did
Blown
Jim
away.
mention that? Yeah, it's fabulous. Did Jim mention that when people get a grant, how the co-op gets money? How
8%.
8%.
Okay,
Yeah,
he did
okay.
tell you that. I
So
missed it.
presumably when you fill out the hoops of the grant application, you put that in your budget.
Yeah.
Are you still there, Jim, or are you heading home?
Yeah.
I'm leaving. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jim.
I'm the point person for a lot of grants in this community, so
Yeah.
I know how they work and to build it in your budget and they think it's a legitimate expense, it's all good.
Sure.
I just love the leverage this gives you.
Yes.
We're all from different groups across the county.